Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me on the Slice of Healthcare podcast. I'm your host, Jared Taylor. Joining me today is Hamid Khoja, the Chief Scientific Officer at FibroBiologics. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. FibroBiologics.
Hey, you gotta love when you get it right. I'm really excited to have you here today. Let's dive right into it. If you could share a little bit about your background, we'd love to hear more about you.
Certainly. I'm trained and educated as a molecular biologist. My career started at a pharmaceutical company that was named Chiron that was purchased by Novartis. I worked in small molecules as signal transduction. I then migrated to infectious diseases at Eli Lilly, and then to the genomics and epigenomics world afterwards in a few startups. And then I ended up here at FibroBiologics. So my main focus in the past few years have been epigenetics research and genomics research.
What was it about this company that really led you to say, I want to be here, I want to take on this role?
I found some of the goals of the company very innovative, and I like to think innovatively, and I like to look at new ways of thinking and solving problems. And some of the things that Pete and I discussed, the CEO, and I discussed before joining, seemed incredibly interesting to me. Some of the chronic diseases that are underrepresented and undertreated, and hoping that we could come up with a treatment for some of these chronic diseases. It was very interesting and intriguing to me.
Now, I know roles differ from company to company, but we do have some listeners that will want to, one day hopefully be where you're at today. Can you share the role of a chief scientific officer for those people that are hoping to one day, maybe be in your position, what that looks like, and maybe if there's a defined pathway? I know they would love to hear that.
Yeah, as the chief scientific officer at FibroBiologics, I lead all the scientific efforts as well as for research and development and manufacturing of cells at FibroBiologics. So I lead a team of researchers and manufacturing scientists to develop innovative new ways of using fibroblasts and fibroblast-derived materials to treat some of the chronic diseases. We are a clinical biopharmaceutical company, so that means our research involves a lot of in vivo research, animal model studies. So we design a lot of animal model studies to look at fibroblasts and how they impact and how we could use them to treat quite a few chronic diseases, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Before we dive more into fibroblasts, for instance, can you give us, I guess, more of a broad overview of, FibroBiologics?
Yeah, FibroBiologics is a fairly new company. So we are a startup company. Our goal is to use one of the most prevalent cells in the human body, fibroblasts, and some of the materials that they are derived from fibroblasts for use in chronic diseases and treating chronic diseases. And these include degenerative disc disease, diabetic foot ulcers, and wound treatment, as well as multiple sclerosis. We're also getting into human longevity, as well as we have some cancer programs as well. So we have quite a few targets, and we're hoping that we could have a product, hopefully, in the market within the next 2 to 3 years.
Now, what's can you explain for we have parts of the audience that 100% will understand everything that you're saying, and we'll have others that are looking to learn more about it and dive more into, for instance, fibroblasts. Can you explain fibroblasts, and then why? Let's even talk about why the general population should care about them as well.
Right. I mean, fibroblast is the most prevalent cells in the human body. They're responsible for the synthesis of the extracellular matrix that basically maintains the structural framework of all the tissues in an animal. They have very few, very interesting characteristics that are very similar to stem cells. One, they can differentiate into other type of cells, such as chondrocytes, osteocytes, hepatocytes, cardiomyocytes. They can differentiate into multiple type of cells, very similar to stem cells. but they also have the capability of regulating the immune system by secreting a lot of cytokines, including IL-1, IL-8, MCP-1, quite a few cytokines that regulate the immune system. But they also recruit stem cells. And also, based on quite a few publications, they also maintain the niches for stem cells in organs such as heart, lung, liver, kidney, skin, and intestine. So they're very prevalent. They're very easy to source and culture as compared to stem cells and maintain.
Now, why, in some cases, why are they not as well known as stem cells, though? Can you
I
go
think it's just,
into more detail on that?
yeah, it's press, right? Uh, Stem cells did receive work on stem cells have received Nobel Prize, and I think that increased the funding into stem cell research and knowledge. And there's quite a few clinical trials going on with stem cells, so there's a lot of chatter in the press about stem cells, which is why it's so prevalent. But our goal is to let people know that there are other cells that basically do the same thing as stem cells, yet they are more easier to source, easier to culture, cheaper to source, and works just as well.
Now, you're developing fibroblast therapies for chronic diseases. You
Yeah.
mentioned earlier on the show some of the diseases that you're focusing in on. Can you talk a little bit more of which diseases you're currently focusing on and why they're a focus?
Right. We just finished our phase 1 clinical trial on multiple sclerosis. The goal of the study was to see if fibroblasts could be infused in patients without any adverse effects noted. So we did not note any adverse events, but we were monitoring some efficacious results, and we noted that there were some positive outcomes with regards to certain aspects of the neurology of these patients. We found that they were able to walk faster. Some of the 25-foot walk tests that were done were significantly better. And we also noted that during the 6-month trial, none of the patients had any MS episodes. So granted, these were a limited number of patients. It was only a safety trial. We're at the moment designing a phase 2 clinical trial to look deeper into the efficacy of fibroblasts for use in multiple sclerosis. Now, granted that fibroblasts don't cross the blood-brain barrier, so it's not fibroblasts directly impacting multiple sclerosis treatment, but it's the immune regulatory aspect of the fibroblasts that are having a positive impact. And right now we're doing some more additional animal model studies to look at the exact mechanism of action of fibroblasts in terms of in helping multiple sclerosis.
What is the role of fibroblasts when it comes to something like wound healing, for instance?
Yeah, if you study the aspects of wound healing, you'll notice that fibroblasts are involved in every single step of the wound care. This includes the hemostasis, inflammation, the proliferation, and the remodeling steps. Fibroblasts are intricately involved in every aspect. In our animal models, utilizing diabetic mice, genetically modified mice who develop diabetes, have indicated about a 40% increase in the rate of wound healing as compared to untreated mice. So this is very intriguing for us. We're carrying out additional studies for mode of action, and we're hoping to have a treatment in place by 2025.
I know you mentioned this a little earlier, and you just mentioned it right now. The topic of studies, right? Where is the company at regarding clinical studies today? Like at each phase?
Yeah, so for MS, we have completed phase 0-1. So we're designing our phase 2 clinical trials. For wound healing, we're in the preclinical animal model stage, and we're hoping to either go through the IVD process or the 510(k) approval, which would be significantly faster, depending on how we decide to develop the treatment. And for degenerative disc disease, we have done a phase 1 clinical trial that has completed, and we do have the IND for a phase 2 clinical trial from the FDA. So we will be designing that as well, hopefully fairly soon, and submitting a design to the FDA for phase 2.
What's next that you're really excited about in terms of the company that you're allowed to share? We'd love to
Absolutely.
hear that.
No, I think wound care it's amazing for us. I think the results that we've seen has been really impressive. We're not only seeing improvement in treating wounds on diabetic animal models, but even wild type models. Wild type animal models with wounds, we've seen about a 40% increase in wound healing as compared to untreated mice. So we see it's a possibility of not only utilizing these with diabetic foot ulcers and venous ulcers, etc., but we also see them being used in just regular wounds prior to surgery and so on, and increasing the healing rate.
Very interesting. So it'll be interesting to continue to hear more from you about what happens regard to not just wound healing, but some of your other focuses as well. Well, I want to once again thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jared. Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.